Hello and welcome to another segment of Western Wisconsin Journal. I'm Jamie Johnson, legal and government correspondent. And with me today is a well-known, well-recognized guest, Mayor Rich O'Connor. Rich, welcome back to the show.
Jamie, thank you. It's a pleasure to be here.
Well, you're getting up there on the number of appearances. I think Dean Knutson still has you by a few because he was here in multiple capacities.
Right.
But you've been mayor how long now?
Since 2016. I'm in my 9th year.
Okay. And more about that later, but you're here to basically do the annual update. It's a good time of year because you recently worked on the budget, but last time we had it on the show, it was with you and Larry, and we were talking about the Booyah.
Yes.
So how did it turn out?
We had a great event. The weather was I don't know if it's an ideal Booyah weather because Booyah is generally, it's a fall weather event and it's usually cooler, and but it was pretty warm. But we had a great turnout. It's difficult to get the estimates on this, but we're believing that it was more than last year. And last year we thought we had 1,000 to 1,100, and everybody that we talked to that's good at estimating crowds thinks that it was more than what we had last year. It's just a great community event, and obviously, we'd like to bring people out just to celebrate Hudson and to get to know your neighbor, get to know the people in the community.
And remind folks again, what was the impetus for the Booyah event? And you moved it to the first Saturday in October.
First Saturday in October. We want to have that every year now. That's
Okay.
our weekend. And the impetus was we wanted to do something with the Golden Rule Initiative, which is promoting civility, understanding, and respect among the people in our community. And so we wanted to get people together that may not have had a chance to get together in any other type of setting. And again, it's free of any type of political discussion. I'm sure there were some discussions going on, but it was...
Well, it was a month before the national election and everything. But what I saw was, people enjoying themselves, and I myself met people I had never met before.
Yeah, it was great to see them. And thank you, by the way, for helping out. It was good to see you stirring the Booyah and helping to serve some of that up. And it was good. People did come over to the kettles quite a bit to see what was going on and how we did it. And so it was a great event, a great community event, and we look forward to continuing to do this for many years to come.
Well, great. Well, on that positive note, we'll kick off and get into some of the nuts and bolts. The budget process for City of Hudson does go on a calendar year.
Right.
And so you start looking at things probably, before that last quarter?
About August,
Okay.
in earnest. The department heads are asked for input probably back in June, July about what they think their needs are going to be projected to look like in the coming year. And then we kind of winnow it down and start sharpening the pencil, as they say. Right.
Now, without getting into details that could take half hour just in the budgeting process itself, but basically your major areas are public safety, public works.
Right.
And your biggest expense is personnel, paying salaries and
our
benefits.
biggest expense is with the police department.
Okay.
And rightfully so. They're the people that keep our community safe.
Right. But with police, there is more than just paying salaries because you got vehicles,
Right.
equipment, technology changing all the time.
All the time, training.
Yep. So how are we doing? And then, of course, you had these other projects, which we've talked on prior shows about. The fire department has a new home.
Right.
Public safety. So tell us a little bit about that.
So with the budget, the bad news is this. Our budget is a 12.1% increase over last year. I'm very proud of the fact that we have kept our budget increases at a very minimum. I think in 1 or 2 years it was close to 0% increase.
It was, yeah.
And we have usually kept it below the cost of living. I think we had 1 year that was an anomaly where it was a little bit higher. But again, this year, and this is important, our operational costs went up 2.3%, or I'm sorry, 2.4% for next year. Our budget for next year, we were projecting
On the
increase.
operational, and that means
Personnel, administrative, everything. The streets, all the public works, all the public safety, everything that we do.
material, equipment, and
Yes.
personnel.
Right.
But then how does it get up to 12.1?
So, and I do want to add that 2.43% is below the 2.6% cost of living.
Right.
Okay. And so we've kept it below the cost of living. But you talked about some of the projects that we have, and we are going to be building a brand new police station. We're going to be building a new public works, not building, we've bought and are renovating buildings for public safety, for police, and then for public works. We had projected to do this a while ago. If you recall, when we moved into the building downtown where the library and the police station is at right now, it had been decided that the police would be moving out of there within 5 years after they moved in. That was more than 10 years ago.
Okay.
All right.
So 5 became 10.
Exactly. And we had a building, the old Phillips building up at Hagen and Hanley, that more or less fell in our laps. And it was just a tremendous opportunity that we couldn't pass up because of the cost savings involved. And the same thing is true with public works. With the building over in the business park, okay? Those two projects, if we had built brand new, would have cost us $38 million. The two of them combined with the purchase of the buildings, the property, and renovation costs are going to be $24 million. We're going to save $14 million over a period of time.
Right.
And so
that's just on the principal plus all the interest that would bond for that.
That's exactly right.
Okay.
So we did have to bond for the acquisition. We were going to try to stagger these buildings over the next few years, but because they both came to us this year, we're bonding for a good portion of that this year, and then for the acquisition in particular, some of the renovation. The rest of it will go into bonding for next year, and so taxpayers are going to see that increase. It's unfortunate that this is happening at this time, but again, it's so fortuitous that it happened that we're going to be able to save this amount of money. It's a great savings to our taxpayers over time, but they are going to see the 12% increase on their taxes this year.
Yeah, when you just look at year over year. But if you take the long range view, they're saving money on the acquisition costs and the remodeling, but also, if I recall, you've also got a 5 or 10 year plan on the streets and the infrastructure, and that's going to cost money. And so when you go to pay for that stuff, you can feather that in. When you're done bonding for these building renovations, you can then transfer and get some payment down on that long-range plan.
Well, and it's all that's true, okay. But I also want to talk about revaluations coming up.
Okay.
So that's very important because the capital improvement project budgets are also included in the bonding, and so they are part of that increase of 12%.
Okay.
We had kind of figured that in before, but didn't expect these two buildings to come up in the past year.
That makes it a bigger bump.
Right. And that's a rolling 3-year capital improvement project budget. So, and that we have now committed to making sure that we will be going out every year and reworking our streets and our infrastructure. And that's something that we were doing really on a case-by-case basis before, but now we are projecting this well into the future to handle the needs that we see out there. And then we get to the revaluation. We saw this happen, 3-4 years ago, perhaps. And what happened then is that we know the property values are going up, and we come in and we do a revaluation on those property values on everyone's home, and we readjust then the assessed value, and we're able to, in a big way, usually able to reduce the overall mill rate on these homes. That will hopefully, what we will see for the majority of the folks in town, is a reduction in their tax load on their home after the revaluation has taken place. Most of the people that will be paying higher taxes will be in the people that have homes in excess of $700,000-800,000 in value, and that's what we saw last time around with revaluation. Homes that were less valuation saw either no increase or a reduction in their taxes when that happened, and that's what we're also looking forward to.
Okay. So that tells the story, the numbers as far as the year-over-year change. What's the story as far as what are people going to see in terms of service? Do we have fewer police officers? How is all that taking
No, we do not have fewer police officers. We did lose a valued lieutenant who retired, and we'll be replacing him, and we'll be filling his position. So we are not reducing any of our personnel, and but that does bring up another issue. I don't think we've talked about this before, and again, it has to do with public safety. And I do want to have a community-wide discussion about this, but we are losing volunteers for our fire department. People are not volunteering in the numbers that they used to. And those that are volunteering are not able to make the type of commitment that past volunteers have been able to because of the different workloads, different jobs that they have, and things like that. If we can't fill these positions, we're going to end up with a full-time fire department, and that means more money going into personnel in our budget, and that's going to be a big number if we don't come up with some solution to that quickly. So we hope to have some type of public relations output to try to attract more volunteers for our fire department that would be able to dedicate more of their time.
Well, if you could just get every 5 or 6 year old from 25 years ago
exactly.
that was going through that said, I want to be a fireman.
I want to be a fireman or a policeman. Yeah.
So, I mean, shortages for good help is just, it's universal across sectors and professions and vocations, but, particularly that fire department and that kind of commitment. Yeah. Hopefully, these little things like the Booyah and the Golden Rule, getting people to reinvest in their communities, it's really important.
Well, and Hudson has always had a great culture of volunteerism. Right. Always, and we just need to. I think the most important thing is we need to let people know that we really have a need to get these positions filled, and I really believe people will respond.
Now, do they have to be city residents to be Hudson?
No, not at all. They
volunteers?
can come in from around the area, and keep in mind also that our service area is well beyond the city limits of Hudson.
Exactly. Your fire trucks don't stop at the city limits.
No, we serve North Hudson, the town of Hudson, Troy. So we're out there in our surrounding communities, and we have volunteers, we have firefighters from those communities, and I think even beyond those. So
if they want to be outfitted with one of those red lights or blue lights that they can put on their car, they just need to. Who do they see if they want to volunteer?
They would call our chief.
Okay.
Yeah.
The fire chief.
Yeah.
All right, and they can find that number in the city directory.
Yeah, I don't have it on me.
All right.
Or they can call downtown.
Sure.
Call our city administrator, and he'll put them in touch.
Okay. So the budget is set for 2025, and you've got now question marks that previously we discussed on other shows about where the police were going to be and so forth. That's public works and so forth. Those are being answered. But as far as impact on programs, are people going to see any big changes? Is in the past, Vine Street's been blocked off, sections of it and so forth. Anything coming up like that in 2025?
You got me there, Jamie. I mean, yes, we do have projects, and I can't remember exactly what they are. I think Vine Street is done now. That was done in thirds, and I think that is complete at this point.
Certainly, 2nd Street was complete when Highway 35 was done.
Right. Carmichael, we're going to be seeing some changes over there yet, and some of that we're kind of waiting for annexation, but with the rolling 3-year capital improvement projects set, a lot of it is internal, in the internal streets, and I can't remember exactly what streets are affected.
Yeah, they don't cause major. I mean, that was a major headache. It was a relatively short span, but just in front of the YMCA and over to Carmichael. Yeah. It caused all kinds of rerouting.
And exacerbated by the fact that was part of the detour from the work that was being done on the bridge and on 94 coming into Hudson.
Right. Well, let's speaking of detours,
but one other thing I guess that we could mention here is with the police department moving out, and then people are wanting to know when is that going to happen. It's likely to be. I cannot foresee this happening in less than 2 years because there's still a lot of work that needs to be done on that building to get them in there, which impacts the library, which is a whole different discussion, right? Yeah. Because the library folks now, we've been waiting for the police department to move out of there so that we can talk about the expansion of the library into that space. So at least we have time now to plan that portion out while we're waiting for the police to move out.
Okay. Let's talk a little bit about downtown development,
Yeah.
because in prior shows we've said, there's things in the works, you would always refer to it, and some of those projects, they have to get through different stages, and we had a little bit of a hiccup with, was it going to be a downtown
Apartment
apartment building?
building, yes, and a big project, a really big project. The Ron Gagnon's group, they own a whole city block downtown between First and Second Street, commercial, and I can't remember the other street, but they own a whole city block, and we had a proposed apartment building down there from that group. I think it was like 112 units. It was going to be in one portion of the building. It was going to be 4 stories high, and had been approved. There were a number of variances, 7 or 8 variances that had been approved by our Board of Appeals to allow that to happen. There was some litigation. They had to go back and redo the design of the building. We just had our first look at this the other night in the council chambers, and the group has reduced the size overall. They took a story off the building. So there is no portion of the building that is higher than 3 stories. There's still some issues with variances there, however, like for an elevator overrun, that's going to take it up over the 45-foot limit imposed by the DNR for Riverway, and a couple other local variances. So they still have some work to do, but or some hurdles to jump. But it's a good-looking building. It's a nice project. It would, I think they brought it down to 102 units, something like that.
Okay.
It
By
would be
taking one
nice to
floor
have people in downtown, living downtown. But that's not, that's going to be up to the DNR and the Gagnon Group to get this in line with our local ordinances and the state Riverway statutes.
Okay. Speaking of downtown, one of the projects that was near and dear to you was the boardwalk and
Right.
the floating dock, so to speak. So
Right.
we happen to have weather this year. Spring
Yes.
was good to us, but then we had rain that didn't stop prior to 4th of July. So
Yeah.
tell us a little bit about the impact of what was amounted to about 5-6 weeks of flooding.
Right. So interesting. Let's start with the boat launch. So we elevated the boat launch a couple years ago. I think a year ago, this summer, we opened the boat launch, and we raised it 2.5, 3 feet because that boat launch had been flooded out for 3 years in a row for more than half the season. And so even though we had that high water, I think that boat launch this year was only closed for maybe a week, 2 weeks for the most of that summer throughout that whole flooding period. So that was good. That worked out well. The boardwalk, we never really had a grand opening because as soon as it was completed, the water went up and the gangways were underwater and people weren't really able to access it. Now, I like calling it a boardwalk. The DNR calls it a wharf, and they helped contribute. They contributed $400,000 for the construction of that. But I like calling it a boardwalk because I want people to know that that's there for more than just boaters. That is not just for boaters to bring, boaters into our city. It's there for the community to use, and it's handicap accessible. It is, I call it a boardwalk because people can get down there on the water. They can get the feel of the water. You can fish there. You can just hang out there. And it's for all of our community to use. And I've seen a lot of people coming in down there that are doing just that. We have more people fishing down there in any given day than we probably have off the walls, used to be, throughout the whole summer. And I like that a lot. And usage was great. When people were able to actually get back on down the gangways, it was being utilized beyond my dreams, especially with the people that came down to fish. But I had a number of people saying that they wanted to get into downtown, to get to our restaurants, to get to our shops, and they said they couldn't get in because the docks were full.
Yeah.
And that was the whole intent. That was the purpose. So we had great utilization. We'll know more next year when we have a full season of usage. But I think it turned out just great.
Yeah, I had a few people ask, why are those poles so tall?
Yeah.
For the floating dock? And I I think they got their answer.
Yeah, when you got, if you looked at that on the 4th of July, they didn't look all that tall anymore. The docks are right up. They were over the wall.
Yeah, right?
Yeah.
So, all right, now, so we mentioned the downtown development and the boardwalk. What other issues would you like folks to know, or what might they expect in the next year?
Well, hopefully, we've got, I've always said this, my focus has been public safety, keeping our community safe.
Right.
So what I think that we can expect with good weather is we'll have more people coming into our city to take advantage of our shops and our restaurants and the amenities that we have here in Hudson. We like to showcase those, and I think we'll have more of that. I think people realize that, we're a very nice, quiet town, and that's the way I like it, and I think you'll see more of that. With respect to construction, again, we talked about that. We're going to see some capital improvement projects. There's no doubt about it. Some more street work and things like that. We've got...
Well, that's just reflective of a healthy community, because
Right.
if you're not taking care of the upkeep and you let that lapse, it can have a snowball effect.
Absolutely. And I think we started to see that, and we're addressing that right now. Festival Foods, we have another grocery store in town.
Yeah, I haven't gotten
that's
over there
good.
yet, but I understand that. Do they have a grand opening set, or is that?
They had a ribbon cutting last week, and I don't know if they considered that their grand opening or not, or if I think they did. And then we're going to be looking more toward some activity maybe on Carmichael. We still have to work with the DOT on how we're going to resolve those issues over there. Looking for again just a great year here in Hudson.
Okay. Carmichael, that's always, we've got the 2 new stoplights, so that has impacted my personal commute by adding 2 minutes. But other than that, how is that going, and is there going to be more development on that east side?
It's projected in our comprehensive plan that whole east side of Carmichael at some point will be annexed. Now, that's just a matter of when the property owners come to us and say, we have development plans and we would like to be annexed. So a lot of the property owners there right now have no desire to sell their property or to develop it, so likely it would be somebody that purchased that property from current property owners. Okay. There is a group that has the south end of Carmichael just north of the freeway that had come to the council with a Cub Foods idea, and that's knowing that Festival was already coming in. So we haven't heard much discussion about that lately, but I haven't heard that plan is dead yet either. So we might have some discussion about that. The Hudson Physicians are proposing another building coming in just south of their facility. And
so this is in addition to the big brand new one.
That's exactly right. So we'll see some development there. And
has there been any talk from Mayo Clinic on that front?
Good
Because
question.
that was, what, 3-4 years ago?
Yeah.
They were looking at a piece of property over by the movie theater.
Exactly. And they own that property by the movie theater. And there's some property around there that is for sale, but their property is not for sale. Now, we used to have a conversation with them about every 6 months to get an update on where they're at. We have not talked to them in about a year now. But we need to reach out to them and sit down and see what they're thinking. But I think they really wanted to see what was going to happen with Hudson Physicians before they made a commitment, an actual commitment. But they had told us last time we talked with them that they were the building projects at Mayo go by region. And each region kind of determines their own construction needs. And they had, I think it was $3 billion worth of construction projects that had been proposed last time we talked to them. And this project over here was down the list considerably. So they said it was going to be a while before they ever actually broke ground. So it's not like they put it off or paused it. They haven't. As last we talked to them, they were still on that list.
Well, as we've discussed on the show previously, there's limited areas for the city to go, whether that's
right.
residential or commercial. How about the dog track?
Yep.
What's going on there? Because we had heard about minor league baseball being a dream, and
yep.
any closer to reality there?
You know, and it was, I want to say it was more than a dream, because the person that had the desire, the dream, I guess, if you want to put it that way, to bring baseball there still has the rights to the franchise with the Northwoods League, and is still trying to put together a package. But you know, there's the property is still there, still designated for that, as well as a brewery that would be right next to it, as well as a hotel that would come in there to help service that whole area, as well as other portions of our community, with an event center. And I think the brewery was also talking about an event center, which we need desperately here. You know, we lost our last area building that we could do any type of events with the closing of the Hudson House, to make room for festival foods, right?
Yeah, right.
So last I talked to these guys, and I say this every time people say, you know, is baseball still a reality? Is it still out there? It's not dead yet. And every time I talk to people, they say baseball's coming. Well, I know people are tired of hearing me say that.
Yeah.
So, but keep our fingers crossed, because we really want to see baseball here. I think it would be a great fit, and I think that's a great location for it.
So I guess one of the measures of success is you know, people wanting to be in the city. We've seen the population go up, but what is there left for property that could be developed, whether it's residential or commercial?
You know, we really don't have much. And when I say that, I don't know that we have any. I think it comes down to getting in the internal neighborhoods, and where we get people with plans that want to see some rezoning to go to maybe multiple dwelling, side by sides, that type of thing, maybe going up a little bit on a lot. But as far as multiple single family or high density apartments or townhomes, that type of thing, we're waiting for annexation requests. And there is one down a little bit south of us, the Windmill property, which is just south of the current business park, and they're talking about some single-family housing there, as well as mostly side-by-side, some townhomes, things like that. I can't remember the total number of units, but it's a good chunk of property. Mm-hmm. And that's in the works right now. There are discussions on that. We've seen the drawings of what they want to do, and so that's one of the things that's a possibility. The Lockney property that the school district looked at before is always a possibility. Nobody has come to us here in a while about that, but I know there are people, prospective buyers, that would like to pick that up and try to get it annexed and develop it. And then we would be talking about going east. You know, we're going to have one more apartment building is going up at Bella Rose, which is at the corner of Vine and Carmichael. So originally it was proposed to have 2 apartment buildings. They have the one now. I believe it's completely filled. And then the second one, they're going through the process for approvals, and they should be starting construction of that pretty soon. Another developer down there at the Maxwell, down just a little bit north of the dog track, had originally proposed that there be a second building there, mm-hmm. and they are working on that right now also. Out on Stage Line, we have that piece of property that a developer wanted annexed. We did annex it a while back, and then they walked away from the project, and another developer has come in, and they're looking, I think, at like 35 units or something over there. So we do have a couple things that are on the drawing board, but beyond that, we have to wait for people to come in and ask to be annexed and show us what it is that they would like to do.
Well, we just came out of a partisan election here early November of 24 and going into April of 25. What does it look like for the city council and the mayor?
Specifically?
Sure.
So I have decided, my wife and I have talked, and I'm going to be running for re-election.
Okay.
One more time. 3 of the council members are up, and I don't know, I haven't heard if they're all running or not, so I can't speak for them.
2 or 3-year terms?
The council is 2-year terms. The mayor now has a 3-year term. The council changed that. In fact, this term that I'm serving right now is the first 3-year term for a mayor. They'd all been 2-year terms.
I knew there was a change there. I just didn't know how that, so it got a little offset then with, you're not up for re-election or the mayor is not up at the same time with the same group of council members.
That's exactly right. And the council members decided that it was only fair that each group of 3 that is up every other year should have a chance to run for mayor at some point in time without giving up their seat.
I'm not sure people understand or realize that in Hudson there's 6 council districts, and the mayor doesn't have a vote unless there's a tie.
Right.
And so how often are you voting?
Not often. I probably count on one hand the number of times I've actually had to vote in my 8.5 years. But when you think about it, I mean, how meaningful is the mayor's vote anyway, unless it's a tie?
Right.
You know? Right.
Right. Well, and so much of this is comes through committees anyway. Right. Well, very good. Well, good luck with that run for re-election. And do you know the district numbers that are up this year?
It would be 1, which is Randy Morissette. I believe 5 and 6.
Okay.
I believe that's it. 1, 5, and 6.
All right. Very good.
And by the way, so that would be Sarah Brook and Joyce Hall.
Okay. And of course, maybe a little early to get indications, but I'm assuming it's like some of these other April elections. The declaration of candidacy has to be in by January 7th.
Yeah. So filings open the first part of December, and they close January. If it's
First
7th,
Monday
it's first, yes.
Or first Tuesday, I think.
First Tuesday in January.
Yeah, very good. Which is late this year. But anyway, all right, with that, anything else? Otherwise, if people need to contact you, Rich, and have a question about city government or just city projects, how do they reach you?
They can reach me a couple different ways. They can email me at mayor@hudsonwi.gov, G-O-V, or they can call me. And my cell phone is out there.
Okay.
I take calls on my cell phone. That's 612-590-1147.
All right. Very good. Excellent. Well, thanks for coming on the show again. Always good talking to you and seeing out you. It was great seeing you at the Booyah, and I'm sure we'll see you around town over the next few months. But if you have a major development, you want to come on the show, let us know.
I appreciate that, and it's always a great time here with you, Jamie. I appreciate the invitation.
All right. Thanks, Rich.
Oh, and
Yes?
can we talk about you running for judge?
Well, I guess there will be a public announcement about that relatively soon. So, yeah,
Okay.
but thanks for asking. And, yeah, my time on the school board is going to come to an end coming up in April.
And you've done a great job on the school board, and I want to thank you publicly for all that you've done for our community. I think that you've been steadfast in your work for our and promotion of our school district and the kids.
Well, thank you.
Thank you for serving our community in that capacity, and hopefully you'll have an opportunity to serve it again in another capacity. That'd be great.
Well, I appreciate that sentiment, and really very much enjoyed it. And somebody's probably going to have to interview me, get a debrief of 12 years on the school board.
Sure.
What that's been like. But anyway, thank you, and thank you for your service for the city. You've done a great job. So
Thank you.
with that, I want to thank our viewers for watching another segment of Western Wisconsin Journal. I'm Jamie Johnson. Keep watching.